Clay is easily bent, molded, and shaped by a potter before being refined in fire where it's hardened. Molded out of clay ourselves, God formed man of the dust of the ground. We are pottery, and God is the divine potter. Through his mercy and grace, he is able to reshape, remold, rebuild, and redeem us.
Cause tomorrow's gonna be another day. Hello everyone, and welcome to Clay. This is a space for people to share their stories of how God has touched and transformed their lives with his goodness. So today, Jessica and I are going to interview our good friend, Courtnie. I'm so excited. Courtnie has an amazing story about how God really worked the miraculous in regards to her struggle with infertility. So welcome to the show, Courtnie.
Hey, Courtnie.
Hi, guys. Thank you. I'm so glad to be here and just ready to share my story with everybody.
Awesome. Okay, so if you could just kind of just give us a little bit of background where it all started, like when you got married, what were your expectations as far as having kids and so on?
Sure. Yeah. In high school, when I was 16, my husband and I met and started dating.
Oh, high school sweethearts. Love it.
We are. Yes. And we were just dated all throughout the rest of high school and some college. We got married right before we were 22.
Okay.
And so at that point, we immediately began to try to get pregnant because that was just my dream. I always wanted to be a mom. I always wanted to have kids. So I'd say about after a year and a half, we went and got just like some tests done, like, the basic tests.
Right.
And at that point is when we discovered that my husband, he had a low sperm count and low mobility.
Okay.
And according to the doctors, I was fine. So at that point, it was just hard for everybody.
Right. You guys eventually did reach out to an IVF doctor. So how far along into your journey was that?
About 6 years we tried, never getting pregnant. We just didn't have the finances to get any help. I mean, insurance doesn't cover it.
Yeah.
And we didn't know where to go. An ad popped up on my phone for a fertility clinic that was in the area. And I was like, I want to contact them. So I did, and we met the appointments, and that's when we kind of got more information on that.
Okay, so you guys decided to move forward with that. And so 6 years in, you guys looked into IVF, and did you guys end up going through with it?
We did. Once we met with the doctors there, we had less than a 1% chance of getting pregnant, and that IVF would be our only option to have children.
So that's what they said. They said you guys had a less than 1% chance of getting pregnant.
Yes.
Naturally.
Less than 1% chance naturally.
Wow.
Yes. So after finding that out, we proceeded with the IVF, and that just stands for in vitro fertilization.
Right.
They take out, they take his sperm, my eggs, mix it together, and it worked the first time.
Wow, praise
So
God.
I got pregnant with twins. Yeah.
Before they were conceived, how were you feeling? I mean, were you feeling pretty hopeless, or did you feel like, okay, there are, like you knew maybe in the back of your mind that IVF could potentially be an option? I mean, what were your thoughts? Where were you at mentally?
Mentally, I mean, I was very upset and discouraged. I felt alone. I didn't really tell much people about our struggle.
Yeah.
Very few people even know we were going through the process of IVF.
Wow.
And then even just with my husband, I knew he had a lot of shame because he couldn't provide like the one thing that I wanted, which was to be a mom.
Right.
And so just every month when, I knew I wasn't pregnant, I would just cry alone in the bathroom and then just pull myself together because, I wanted to be strong for him.
Yeah.
Right.
That's so hard on a couple. It's not just the mom. I know infertility just so impacts couples and marriages. And it's ironic that you say you feel alone, which I mean is understandable. While all the while we know infertility is not an uncommon thing.
Oh no.
Like there are many.
It's really not.
So many.
Yeah, there are many other people. And I mean, gosh, once I start hearing people's stories, I'm like, oh, wow. I didn't even realize until I guess more
Yeah, it's just
recent
such like a
years.
taboo subject. People just don't talk about it, and they just do it ashamed and embarrassed and alone,
Right. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for you coming on here and talking about it with us. I really, really admire
I do,
your
and
vulnerability.
I want to get this out because I want people to know that they're not alone.
Yeah.
And there's people out there going through the same exact thing as them, and that there's hope.
Yes, there is
Definitely.
hope.
And, saying 6 years almost kind of minimizes it, but that's 6 years times 12 months. That's 12
It
letdowns
is.
times 6. And
Yes.
that's just, devastating whenever that's all you want is to conceive a baby.
Yeah, just over and over again.
Yeah.
Yep. Can you imagine getting rejected that many times, and not getting what you want for trying that many times?
Yeah,
Yeah.
just losing hope. And so, God blessed us, which is a beautiful, beautiful thing. And so I'm guessing after that point, you still decided that you guys might have children again after that, or you're going to keep trying IVF. What were your thoughts with that?
Hey, Clay Nation, Jessica here, and I've got some exciting news for you. Now you can show off your love for Clay Podcast with our brand new merchandise collection. From cozy hoodies that wrap you in comfort during your podcast sessions to stylish mugs that hold your favorite beverage while you tune in, we've got something for everyone. And that's not all. Our exclusive t-shirts feature the inspiring Bible verse Isaiah 64:8 that'll keep you motivated throughout your day. But wait, there's more. By purchasing our merchandise, you're just not getting cool items, you're also supporting Clay Podcast. Your love and enthusiasm keep us going. And now you can take a piece of the podcast with you wherever you go. So what are you waiting for? Head over to our website at www.claypodcastnetwork.com or follow us on Facebook at Clay Podcast and also on Instagram at Clay_podcast to check out the full collection and grab your favorites today. And always, thank you for being a part of our podcast journey and now our merchandise family. Remember, every purchase is a step towards more amazing podcast content coming your way. Stay tuned and God bless.
With the IVF process, we had 4 embryos total. So we did the 2 with the twins, and then I had 2 left. So at that point, I knew that we would have more children, and we would just wait, a few years after the twins when we're got our life together, ready to go again, and then we would do the IVF again.
Right, because they save those other 2 embryos, right?
They do, yeah. They're frozen somewhere, and they last a really long time, so.
Wow, which that in itself is like mind-boggling and amazing to me.
Totally. Technology nowadays.
Right. So in your mind, it's like, okay, we know we're having, we have these other 2 embryos. We're going to have 2 more babies. And so how long after the twins are born did you guys decide to go for it again, to do IVF again?
We waited about 3.5 years, and we were ready to have more children.
Okay,
and we just knew in the back of the head, our head, we had those 2 embryos left. I had my names picked out. I had plans. I was ready to go.
Right, because it worked the first time immediately. So why wouldn't it, work?
It did,
again?
yes. We had so much hope. We knew that it was going to work.
Right.
So whenever you guys decided to try again, walk me through that whole process. What exactly happened?
Yeah, well, we originally went in planning to do 2 embryos again and just come out with twins. But the doctor suggested to do 1 at a time because if we did the 2 and it didn't work out, we would be left with none and we wouldn't have another chance. So we ended up taking that route, doing 1.
Right. Which
I was just confident it worked. It worked the first time. God was going to do it again the second time, and that's kind of where I was at.
Right.
We did 1 embryo transfer. And then afterwards, you wait about 2 weeks and do a blood test. And at that point, they can tell you if you're pregnant or not. So we did the blood test, and it came back positive, but it was like low numbers. So what they do is they wait a couple days, and they do another blood test. And at that point, we found out that it was a chemical pregnancy, which is basically just a very early miscarriage.
Wow. That's devastating. That's devastating. And for people who don't know as much, I didn't realize that you have to actually prep your body for a long time before, right, Courtney? Like you go in for
there is so much prepping. Yes, there is blood tests and ultrasounds and
like didn't you have like infusions or something also, like some sort of IV or something that you had to go
there was
in?
an IV infusion at one point where I had to sit for a few hours and they ran something through my body, which is supposed to help make it more sticky and just the embryo attach more.
Right. So
there's shots that you have to give your stomach and multiple times a day. There's pills. There's just your hormones are whacked. It was very hard at that point. Like I said, I had a lot of hope that it was going to work, a lot of faith.
Yeah.
So when it didn't work, I was just confused and just in shock of why. I just started doubting myself, doubting my faith. Matthew 17:20 says, faith the size of a mustard seed. And I had the faith the size of a mustard seed, but then I was like, maybe I didn't. What happens?
Right.
You're trying to figure out like where it went wrong. Did you do something? Did you not have enough faith, but you did have faith? So what happened?
Yeah.
So that has to be hard. So then you guys decided to go ahead and try again with the second embryo, correct?
We did. It was about 2 months later is all we waited. We had to get my body back, like get the medication out of it. And then I immediately started again with the medication and the shots. And we did the second transfer, the last transfer, 2 months later. It turned out to be another chemical pregnancy. And we were out of embryos at that point.
Wow. And to even, get more embryos, that's a whole nother process, right?
It's a gigantic, very expensive process to get more. It's extremely and hard. The process, it's draining.
Yeah. Wow.
I just didn't have it in me to do it again.
Right. Totally understandable. That's really have to have two unsuccessful transfers. That had to be really, really
it was, and those were my babies.
Painful. They are, exactly. Yes.
For 3.5 years, I thought of them and prayed about them and had names for them. I was very thankful for my twins, and I knew I was blessed, but my heart was not full. I had always considered having more children. I just didn't think I was done. So I was just broken, and I was just full of questions. Why would God give me the desire to have children for it not to happen and to undergo all of this? Why would God allow, for me to lose those two babies?
Right.
So within a few months, I immediately began looking into adoption and fostering. And I thought maybe that was God's will to help another child out there that doesn't have the family to take care of them.
Right. Right. And
so I contacted an adoption agency, and they sent me the application. And as I sat there and started to begin to fill it out, I immediately felt like I was told to stop.
Wow.
This wasn't God's plan. Stop. Don't do this. It's not time yet. So I listened, and I did not fill out the application.
Wow.
Okay, so then what happened next? How long until anything changed?
I immediately just began to pray more.
Yeah.
I began to push into my Bible more. Yes. And within, a year, I just really became comfortable with the family God blessed me with. And that took me a long time to do.
Yeah.
I was so thankful for my children. I understand there's so many families and women out there that don't get pregnant and get to have children. So I got very comfortable with just what I had and was just thankful.
Yes.
And content, I guess you can say.
Yes. Okay, so now let's get into the miraculous part. So then what happened? I have a big smile on my face right now. Just thinking about it.
Yeah. So in January of 2022, my church had the congregation fill out some prayer cards of what we hoped for and what we were going to pray for the year. I put 3 things on that card, and one of them was I needed to forgive somebody close to me. The second thing was to get pregnant, stay pregnant, and have a healthy baby. And then there was a third thing.
Yeah.
I just had some forgiveness unforgiveness in my heart towards somebody.
Yes.
And I just knew that I needed to forgive them just for my own sake, not theirs.
Yeah.
Right.
So I just began praying and seeking God's word and just looking up Bible verses and Bible plans all on forgiveness.
And so would you say that that's something that you made that decision to do then around that time, is to extend forgiveness to that person that you had some bitterness towards?
I did. I just, like I said, I had that on my heart. I put that on my prayer card, and I just immediately, it wasn't going to just come naturally. It was very hard for me. So I purposely started seeking that. And I would say by the end of January, I could feel a change in my heart, that I forgave that person, and that was just lifted. That burden was gone.
Yes. Okay, so you made that decision to forgive in January. So then what happened in February?
What happened in February was that I was about 2 weeks late with my period. But that happens every once in a while. It was almost like a tease. I'd get excited, and
Right.
it ended up not being. So I bought a pregnancy test in secret and waited for my husband to go outside to do some yard work. And then I took the pregnancy test, fully expecting it to say no. But I took the test, and it was positive, which is the first time I had ever gotten a positive pregnancy test before.
Wow.
Praise God.
Oh,
That's amazing.
My gosh. And that was with zero intervention. Like, that was natural conception with no treatment at all.
Correct. There was no treatment, no help. I was always trying to get pregnant, but nothing, in particular to be done.
Sure.
That's so amazing. God is so faithful. So did you just freak out? I can't even imagine after all those years.
Out.
Oh,
I looked at it. I was just in shock. I had to get the box out of the trash and compare it. And then I just went yelling outside for my husband to come inside, and he thought somebody was hurt. And I locked us in our bedroom so my kids didn't hear. And I told him, and I just collapsed on the floor in just pure joy.
Oh my gosh, that's so
and shock.
Wow. God is so good. He's so faithful. And it's like he knew all along that was what was going to happen. And he had that plan for you all this time. And so to have it finally pass is that's awesome. So I think it's interesting how you talked about, forgiveness and unforgiveness being an issue that you were struggling with beforehand, because the Bible says that, unforgiveness can actually hinder our prayers. And I'm not saying that I don't want, and please don't hear what I'm not saying. I don't want anyone to think that I'm saying, well, if you have infertility issues, it's your fault because you're bitter. I'm not saying that at all. But what I am saying is that when we are contending for something, we are praying for something, if we have unforgiveness in our heart, that can actually hinder God from being able to bless us to the fullness that He wants to. And so it was totally no coincidence. Would you agree? It was totally no coincidence that in January you made that decision to forgive, and then February you got pregnant. That's amazing.
It is amazing, and I completely agree with you that it was correlated, and right after the forgiveness, yes.
Wow. And I think he did that very intentional too.
Yeah.
Totally highlighted that. He could have had you got pregnant a couple months later, but was like, no, I'm showing you that because of you obeyed me and you forgave this person.
He planted that seed, and then you went to sow it and made it happen, and, went after it, and just so obedient.
Yes.
It's like, your little reward was your baby.
I love it. I love it. So tell us about the baby. What's her name?
Her name is Liliana Faith. So she's named after my grandma. And Faith, obviously, because I had to have so much faith to get her.
You did. And honestly, the fact that you even when you were filling out those adoption forms and you stopped, that in itself was a sign of faith in that moment. Like you heard God say to wait and you waited. And I think sometimes we can really try to push our agenda that we bulldoze past the voice of God, but you didn't. And you held on to what he was saying. So I just think that's so amazing.
Yeah, that's good because, me stopping, I wanted that baby, and me not filling that out, hindered that. But it didn't, because God had his own plans all along.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's like the epitome of giving God control. Like instead of you taking control and doing what you wanted to do, you listened and just put it all in his own hands. And it's just so good.
Yes, that's good. Yes.
Thank you so much, Courtnie, for
Thank you,
sharing
Courtnie.
that. So before we get off here, one last thing. What would you share with somebody who is right now struggling with infertility issues? Is there any little nuggets?
What would you say to 20-year-old Courtneys out there?
Yeah.
I would say I'm sorry. I know it's horrible and you feel so alone right now, but you are not alone. There are so many women and maybe even your friends that are going through the same exact thing that you're going through right now.
Yeah.
And I want you to go find somebody to confide in and pray with you and to pray for your future children.
Yes.
Because when two or more gather in prayer, he is with us.
Yes. So good. So good, Courtnie.
I don't, never, ever give up. Circumstances can change in a moment. I was giving up after IVF and the adoption, but my circumstances changed. I did not see it coming. It was a complete shock, but it was such a blessing. And it has just helped me so much grow with my patience and trusting in God. And I believe that the same thing can happen to you.
Yes. So good. So good. And God, he is good. He's a good God, and he loves his children, and he wants good things for us, and his timing is perfect, even when it is challenging for us. So,
yes.
Awesome.
Well, and I just have one more thing I wanted to share for that.
Please do.
I have a Bible verse on my heart that got me through these times.
Yeah.
And if it helps one person, that would be great. So it's Isaiah 60:22. And it says, the smallest family will become 1,000 people, and the tiniest group will become a mighty nation. At the right time, I, the Lord, will make it happen.
Come on.
And that is what happened for me. And I believe that will happen for other families and other couples out there as well. He will make it happen when the time is right.
So good.
So good, Courtnie. So awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you for tuning in to another inspiring episode of our podcast. And our deepest gratitude goes out to our guests for sharing their incredible journey with us. If you're drawn to stories of deliverance, miracles, redemption, and testimonies, then we invite you to be a part of our show here at Clay Podcast. Your story could touch hearts and ignite hope. Join us in spreading faith and inspiration by completing the guest application on our website, www.claypodcastnetwork.com. And as always, a huge thank you for listening. Your support means the world to us. God bless.
We don't need a man.